not so common. What's very common is people making fake accounts, pretending to be children. I tell them I'm not comfortable with them on my channel. Same as I'm not comfortable with them in real life. There's too much negative connotation. I'm sorry I screamed out my voice already. Otherwise, I'd be a lot more eloquent with my words, I suppose. I don't get the luxury of just caring about me because of the threats, harassment, and intimidation against me by a bunch of druggies before Natalie was killed and a bunch of nut jobs afterward. I've had to fear for my friends and family, and many of them have recorded and typed the words of how they're afraid and why. Now, this person who got on a couple of days ago, I'm pretty sure it was just somebody messing around. But I also don't know. My channel was meant for the victims to speak out for each other and with each other to stop this systemic abuse. Now, when somebody gets a hold of me and tells me that they got into a fight with their stepfather and they get a hold of me on my channel, what am I to do? I've attempted on multiple occasions to turn in crimes of abuse that people have tried to let me know about. But the cops just treat me like I'm crazy. And then when they realize how wrong they were, they start committing crimes against me to try to shut me up. I want to say I'm sorry if that young man was actually beaten up by his stepfather. That's terrifying, and ended up on the streets as a result of it is even more terrifying. I didn't want to ask any identifying information, but I also didn't want that individual to be unsafe. I don't know which it was, but I also don't know the right thing to do anymore. All the things that I was taught are wrong. None of them work. Everything is based on bias now. My Tourette syndrome's fucking with me. So let's talk about this person the other day who was getting on and claiming to be underage and to be being abused. How do I turn that in? When you see crimes on my channel, you have to turn them in. I can't. If you go back through my videos far enough, you see why. I'm bullied until I have a meltdown. And then because I had a meltdown, people pretend like I'm crazy. When I'm abused enough, well, I scream out loud and I use curse words because speaking nicely does not work. Speaking nicely gets me talked over and treated like it's not important, and obviously it is important. Obviously I was trying to get attention for a reason before Natalie was killed. Obviously being pawned off onto drug addicts and drug salesmen was not the right way to go. Yet that's the corner that I was backed into, because those who don't do drugs aren't likely to accept somebody who's autistic and has Tourette syndrome. But then everybody's solution is drugs, isn't it? But I should do drugs. Some people want to push street drugs. Some people want to push pharmaceuticals. But none of you are qualified to do so. Your opinion doesn't matter, the evidence does. I hope this youngin' was able to get help. But I hope even more that it was just another troll account. I hope it wasn't really someone being harmed. But it leaves us all with the question of what is a disabled person to do when you're being abused to help you, when they're being abused too, and nobody is helping them to turn it in. All of these agencies that accept your tax dollars, they're stuffing us in like sardines, appointment after appointment. Their fix-all for everything is therapy and pills and false charges. Out here, it's a different world. The difference between a hero and a villain in the United States comes down to credit score. If you have a bad credit score, you're a bad person, according to the American people in public. What you're allowed to do, allowed to say, the rights that you have, these are not constitutionally guaranteed. These are guaranteed only as far as the American bias can throw you. And the American bias will throw you under the bus regardless of what the law states on paper. I have to deal with a lot of predators. On my YouTube channel, I can hide user on this channel. I can prevent them from harming myself and others on this channel. But this channel is the only place I have that power. In real life, if people seek to hurt you, if you're in my general vicinity, I'm going to do something. Even if I don't like you. I guess I'm just stupid like that. Now this person getting a hold of me to tell me about abuse, why does that create a problem on my channel? It's not just on my channel, it's in my life. It's because I have no power, I have no voice, because nobody has helped to lend me theirs. All these hundreds and hundreds of people getting a hold of me. promising they want to help, and their idea of help is to tell me about all of their predators. Followed by them telling me not to be negative. When I'm overwhelmed with all of their stories, did you really call me because you wanted to help me? Or did you call me because you wanted help? And you thought that I would be heard? Well, I have used my voice many, many times to bring attention to others, knowing that my predators are going to try to spin it into me being some horrible monster out to destroy the world. Well, what's the world come to? I don't like that I have problems communicating, but I'm afraid for myself and for others. I find myself thinking, what if that young man, what if he's being rained on or snowed on? I made a bunch of assumptions about him being all right because he was just kind of typing with me and kind of being nonchalant, it seemed like. But there's also the fact that it's something I can't let go. It's stuck in my head. It's ingrained in my brain. What do I do? What do I do? Who do I tell? Who do I show that's going to listen before it's too late? What's to stop his predators from harming him again? Because I have no way to turn it in safely without being abused the way that I have been here and in Hood River and in the Dalles and in Warrenton and Astoria and even Portland. How do I seek help for a child? Time and time again, since Natalie's death, I have had to stay with people who are abusive to each other and to children all the time, nearly nonstop. That doesn't mean that people beat on their children the whole time I was there. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying that I've seen environments that are conducive to well-adjusted adults. I've grown up long enough to see how maladjustment destroys a child's life and chances. I've seen how single parents here in the United States, both men and women, have sought education from the Department of Health and Human Services because that's where everyone points them. And the Department of Health and Human Services sends them around in circles. In many places in the United States, if you're a poor person who tries to turn in child abuse, the cops will come and bully you for trying. But if it's the so-called upright churchgoer who calls them, someone who maybe you had a disagreement with and held a grudge, and your life is changed forever. The woman on the cover of this, she wrote an article that was untrue. There are a few parts, very few parts, where she told the truth, but it didn't matter. She didn't care. She chose to write fiction for fanfare and profit. She did so at the expense of Natalie Bollinger and myself. She said untrue things about Natalie Bollinger. And she said untrue things about me, things that were misleading, some that were only partially true. I absolutely threatened to retaliate against Ted Bollinger and Tim Beeson, and I absolutely did retaliate against Ted Bollinger and Tim Beeson. I exposed what they did with Natalie Bollinger's words. I exposed what they had done to Natalie. I exposed who was involved, what they were saying and what they were doing. I told the truth. And nobody seems to care about that. I've had to do a lot of desperate things to try to get heard, but what do you expect? What is nearly every person's response when I ask them what they would do if this happened to their sister, their mother, their daughter? If these things that happen to me, that many of them have gotten to see, gotten to hear with their own eyes, their own ears, many of them being present for the attacks, the assaults, the abuse, the racism, the anti-Semitism, the anti-LGBT slogans, the assaults, over and over and over. And when I speak up about these predators, they play victim because I spoke up. And because I am angry about the abuse, the rapidity, and the rampant, repeated, abusive nature of these things destroys a person's mind. It destroys their sense of safety and their trust in the community and in humankind. It was one thing, it was mothers getting a hold of me, telling me they're afraid for their children, or they're trying to find a missing loved one. It terrifies me. I know the reality of the world that I live in because I've seen it too much with my own two eyes. When you see your friend's eyes go from green to gray, it means they've been dead for a while. People pretend like, because I'm autistic, I don't know what's going on around me. Like when people get into a fight, that I don't know it's a fight. Like people who are assaulting me and threatening me, I'm treated as if they're delusions. Despite the fact that on my channel you can hear and see those very things with your own two eyes and know that they are true. I'm not on here blaming everything on magical purple unicorns. I'm not accusing alien Illuminati members of coming down here with brainwave butt probes for the CIA. I'm telling you that 2 nights ago, this random account created a type on my channel. It's gonna haunt me because my voice has been destroyed. No court will hear me. No lawyer will defend me. No officer will listen. I'm less than the shit on the bottom of your shoe to most Americans. Natalie and her friends and family have repeatedly bullied me. Natalie stopped the bullying, and that includes shaming someone for being victimized, shaming someone for trying to get help, playing victim when someone begs you to stop the abuse. I didn't ask Natalie where she was at. I didn't ask who she was with. I asked for her to call off the dogs, and I told her why they were abusing me. I let her know what Maddie Boa had said. She didn't care. She was back with her drugs. She was back with those who she was familiar with, even if they're predators. I knew who Tim Beeson was before Natalie was killed. Well, before Natalie was killed. Not because he was getting a hold of me to threaten my life and my family's life. Not because he was calling me up for months before that, threatening me with a motorcycle club, threatening my friends and family in Montana, Colorado, Nebraska. These are not things that you do. Tim Beeson started a fight that he couldn't win. He should have known when enough was enough. But he was an idiot. He decided he was going to fuck with someone that doesn't get embarrassed. I don't admit all of my sins loud and proud on Facebook because I'm some religious zealot, because I'm not. I do it because it's the right thing to do. If you fuck up, admit it right away so that we can move past it. We can't move past it as long as you're trying to go vigilante. We can't move past it as long as you always want vengeance because you are embarrassed, because you did something wrong and you got busted. If you'd fessed up to it first instead of making me post it up all over fucking Facebook and YouTube to be heard. What kind of world could we be living in now? Those of you who knew me in real life in Boulder, Colorado, up until 2015 in October, all of you got to see who I really am, who I choose to be. Ryan James, you know I took them lumps for you. When Kelly Engel wanted to have Casper and Danny and that other dipshit assault you. You know, I went down there to talk to those 3 boys like they were men and discuss it like adults. You know, they hit me and that I took it and that I didn't swing back on any of them. When I came to you for help before Natalie was killed, you wanted to throw money in my face as a magic fix-it. You were going to send me $50, remember? I didn't need your money, I needed your voice. That's the thing with a lot of these mothers who claimed that they cared. These are horrible things. Many of these mothers are experiencing those things in their lives. And I'm told that's just karma. Well, it's not just karma, but I understand the rules of karma, same as the 10 Commandments. I understand them from a structure point of view. Because although I don't get embarrassed, I understand fully how embarrassment and pride go hand in hand. Because it all comes down to the public's perception of you. What do people think of you? What do they believe about you? And how do they treat you as a result? I've been to prison to try to turn in abusers and protect children. And I'm not a felon. There were officers involved, and when I tried to turn in those officers, as well as some of their coworkers, and registered Nebraska sex offender Robert Franklin Warnick, they lied to have me incarcerated and have the evidence of their wrongdoing taken away and put into their custody. Primarily Sheriff Scott DeCosta of Dual County, Nebraska. Over 20 of his officers were allowed to leave. He intentionally neglected his duties and intentionally misled the situation. On paper, in court, he illegally and immorally assisted a sex offender in getting away with threatening my life, threatening assault, and then another assault. One assault before I went to prison and one assault after I got out. I registered Nebraska sex offender Robert Franklin Warnick. Sexual assault against a child. That's what he was charged with. That's what he was convicted of. How am I treated and why don't I have protections? I'm treated as if I'm Robert Franklin Warnick. The difference is he's been charged and convicted. I've never been charged with anything. even coming close to any form of child abuse or sexual assault or murder, ever. You get to see that the only places where people ever pretended like I assaulted them was police officers and hospitals that those police officers took me to. When you bully someone to the point that they commit suicide, you have done wrong. Natalie's friends, family, and ex-boyfriends didn't just bully her to death, they bullied me to death too. They had bullied me to the point that I was begging for my life to end. That's right. I was begging for my life to end in October of 2016. And I never stopped. I never stopped. I always ask that you hear me first. I always ask you to hear me first. And then I beg you, please hear me. People are hurting me. Please don't blow me off. Please don't blow off this situation. Please don't. When it's primarily children that have parents involved and it's the parents getting a hold of me, it's one thing. But when I've got somebody who's made up an account to get on my channel and pretend to be a child who's being abused, like this is so destructive. It doesn't help anyone. It just hurts people. It hurts all of us. It makes it 100 times tougher to believe anyone. And it makes it 1,000 times tougher to be heard. It makes me feel gross to be in a world like this. It's gross. When I try to tell people about the abuse, they just make me feel gross about going to them to begin with. I know they're not going to take it seriously until they take a look. And they're not going to take a look until they take it seriously. Catch 22. Y'all pretend this is about Natalie, and it's not. It's about the state of mind of the American people, where their heads are at, who they blame. How about we blame the predators, specifically by name? If your predator's name is Ted Gene Bollinger, then go after him, not men. Rose M. Kelly, Danica Shell Garner, Rochelle Shelley Campbell, Alicia Michelle Bollinger, that's your predator. You go after him, not me. Why would you go after an innocent bystander? Why would you go after someone who had nothing but good intentions? There isn't much I can do to convince you except show you evidence that you'll never look at. My friends and family getting a hold of me and telling me that they were afraid of the police, that they were afraid of the public, that people were threatening to kill them and their families, threatening to kill their children. And I was stuck in places where people were abusing children to try to get help stopping abuse against myself. I got a hold of people that I knew that were mandated reporters, like Jerry Sparks. She'd known what to do when I was at Sally Treon's in Pueblo after Natalie was killed. I let Jerry Sparks know about Sally Treon's daughter getting kicked in the face by a meth addict who was staying there. I tried my best to speak with her about Jeannie. I'm not even pronouncing her name right because I have no teeth. The Pueblo West woman who, a year after Natalie was killed, her son died. Well, I got to live with her at Sally Treon's. She was a drug addict there too. And all the screaming and Maddie getting kicked in the face. And on the TV, they watched a show about psycho clowns in a circus in the 1920s or 30s, probably the 1930s. The whole time I was there, nonstop on the TV. And people had to try to have conversations over the top of it, and it's about murder the whole time. It's so fucked up. If you're going to paint someone out to be a horrible monster, then go all the way. In Dual County alone, the Dual County Sheriff's Department and the Dual County Prosecutor have had to drop 30 separate charges against me. That's how many times they tried to shut me up. Each and every one of those charges was an attempt to shut me up. Repeatedly, I went to Nebraska State Patrol like I was supposed to, and to Nebraska Attorney General's office like I was supposed to. And repeatedly, they sent me back to Scott DaCosta to investigate himself, and to his deputies for them to investigate themselves. And over and over and over again, you get to see how that worked out. All because officers in January of 2017, nearly a year before Natalie was killed, did not want to do their jobs about me being abused. All they wanted to do was take me in on suicide watch, and Sydney Hospital was not having it. I was there for about 2 hours. They set me up for an appointment with Nicole Peralta and Tamara at Region 1. And we got started on the process of turning in people like Tim Beeson, people like Ted Bollinger, People like the Dual County Sheriff's Department. By the time January of 2017 rolled around, I'd already taken over 3 months worth of abuse, right? No, only over 2. It was the beginning of January when I was picked up by 2 state patrol officers, 1 male and 1 female, and 1 Dual County deputy, whose name I still don't know to this day. I thought for a few that it might be Officer Jordan Anderson because of the nature of the way he proceeded with things. However, Jordan Anderson didn't do his job either. Neither did Deputy Jared Hahn. Neither did Sheriff Scott DaCosta. None of his deputies did. Not Stutterin' Stanley himself, Cody Selhorst. I did desperate things to try to get heard because I had to. How am I supposed to feel about people threatening to kill my friends and family? How am I supposed to feel about being assaulted when I go to see my friends and family? How am I supposed to feel about repeated harassing phone calls? How am I supposed to feel? When I asked Natalie Bollinger nicely to put a stop to it, and I asked Alicia Bollinger nicely to put a stop to it, and I asked Maddie Bowen nicely to put a stop to it, and what do? They choose to pretend like I'm victimizing even more. And the predators that they've told me about, that they're afraid of, that harmed them repeatedly, start getting a hold of me to threaten me and threaten my life and threaten my family. The men in Natalie and Alicia Bollinger's lives that they wanted to get as far away from as possible because those men were scary. And then I had to deal with those men getting a hold of me repeatedly. How do we stop this abuse when we can't even go to the police? How do we stop this abuse when police choose to harm us for trying to protect ourselves and our friends and our families? Who are we supposed to go to when those that we're supposed to trust, our trusted adults, blow us off or threaten to arrest us if we refuse to go with our predators? What are we supposed to do? Looks like someone's typing at me. Someone calling them Jones something I can't pronounce. Typed, "Hello, how are you? Are you feeling all right? Go to the authorities. They will help you." No, Jones, they won't. That's the problem. I'm a disabled homeless man. Do you know what that means? It means it's just going to be assumed that I'm a mentally ill junkie and I'll get better. They'll send me to mental health. They'll refuse to look at evidence. The people they send me to will tell me that it's not their job. They're not investigators. They can't look at it. They can't look at evidence, they tell me. Not even if I bring it in person. They tell me to do it online, yet provide me no safe place to do it online. And worse than that, the repeated abuse is expensive. And for somebody who has to live on a fixed income of $800 a month, or less than $700 at the time that Natalie was killed, and all of my back payments that were supposed to go to helping me to get a place, and I had a plan, and you can see that. I discussed my plan with Natalie Bollinger, with Nicole Peralta, with many people over the years to get property where I would have my own rights. And I could put my foot down instead of having to be subservient to people who did not have my best interest at heart. I've lived through far too many corpses as an autistic individual not to revere human life. Human life is to be revered. It's the only real gift we have. But our selfishness has become a plague upon the entire planet. There are videos on my YouTube channel where you can hear people screaming the N-word at me and a bunch of anti-LGBT stuff at me. And you can hear the cops talking right over me in the very same video. You can hear me in some of my videos speaking with officers while being harassed and heckled, being called by restricted numbers over and over and over again, and having to deal with predators typing at me, predators that my friends and family have to fear in real life. Riley Lawton, he married my little sister, and he was also married to a woman named Amber. My little sister was scared shitless. She followed instructions, went someplace safe, and pretended like I was the bad guy. Now, unfortunately for her, when she didn't want to live with Amber, and she didn't want my niece around Amber's dad, another registered sex offender. Amber attempted to make my sister unsafe. It's a good thing my sister already knew what to do. It's a good thing that we'd already rehearsed it. If nothing else, my sister does know how to keep her and her daughter safe. And they both know Uncle Sean is willing to go down to protect them. My channel is a series of abusive situations against myself and my loved ones, and me speaking out about every one of those situations, how they affect me. You can also hear how they affect me. I find it difficult to remain calm because I'm always looking over my shoulder for the next Andrew Wolnez, the next Wesley Reiner, 88958. That's right, that's his inmate number. This is a man who did unspeakable acts to his 3-year-old brother in front of a 9-year-old at a foster home. We've got to find a way to get my evidence in the hands of the people who can make these arrests. I've already shown time and again I am willing to go to jail or prison to force this evidence into their hands. I'm just not willing to kill people. I don't have it in me. I'm too much of a diplomat. I hate violence too much. It didn't matter how many hundreds of people harmed me. What mattered is if I acted like that even once back towards them. It didn't matter how many threatened my life and my family's life. You could do it for over a year and a half, and if I threaten you back, what happens? Well, apparently what happens is that the predators get away. They get to play victim. You all play on bias against the homeless and the disabled and men. And you help sexual predators like Ted Gene Bollinger and Robert Franklin Warnick to do whatever they want and to have no consequences. You enable people like Derek Parrish to assault people and get away with it. To have no remorse. You enable predators like Derek Apodaca to assault at-risk adults. And for both he and Natalie's mother to work together to get away with it. Y'all have no idea how fucked up a world we live in once you start playing victim. And it makes it popular for everyone to do so. There are just too many bodies. Too many Natalies, too many Christines, too many Stevens. Stephen Green is in the ground now. Stephen McMillian managed to break his own neck. Christine Buhit overdosed on fentanyl. Kelly Engel overdosed as well. Brianne Ingersoll drank herself to death, or she was bludgeoned to death. I don't know which. Anna Hunka drank herself to death, or she was bludgeoned to death. I don't know which. These are people that actually existed, people I knew in real life, people that I conversed with. People who I miss. With every single moment of my life, I miss them. When I think about Natalie Bollinger, I don't think about all the horrible things. I think about what she should have had. Y'all got no idea. Natalie was fucking awesome. She was totally fucking awesome. Like, she She was fun, but not possessive. When I was being hurt and I got a hold of her, she tried to pay attention to when she was making it about her, and she felt horrible about talking about her problems, and I felt horrible about talking about mine. We were going to do something to change it. We were going to do something to stop it. Life is what happens while you're busy making plans. It's just unfortunate that just a few kind words can so easily be the difference between life and death. Kind words being the difference between homicide and another breath. The difference between suicide and being here for another day for your friends and family, even if you're not okay, and even if they don't care that you're not okay. I don't believe that wanting to leave is selfish. I believe that when you are ready to go, that anybody that would want to keep you here is selfish. Because they obviously don't care why you want to go, why you want to leave, why you don't want to be here anymore. It's because they're not having to endure the abuse. And they're not alone the way that you are. You have no idea how alone Natalie had to be, especially around the people that she loved the most. The sacrifices that she made for her sisters, the sacrifices that she made for Gabriel, the sacrifices that she made for her mother, and the life that she gave so that her father and her brother, so that her father, her uncle, and her ex-boyfriend wouldn't have to pay the piper for the things that they had done to her. I said I would retaliate, and how did I retaliate against Ted Bollinger and Tim Beeson? I took Natalie's words and I posted them very loud and proud and public. And the authorities don't give a holy goddamn about a homeless disabled man. Are you fucking kidding me? You know how you end these videos? Good to be rid of you. Thank you for coming to visit. Stay out of trouble or don't get caught. Remember, you are your brother's keeper, and you are your sister's keeper too. And no victim left behind.